I'm John McQuaid with 8541 Tactical, and today we're here to give you our review of the VISM Universal Pistol Sight Tool. Now, anybody that has worked on handguns for any amount of time knows that replacing the rear sight on a handgun can be a royal pain in the butt. Usually they are a press fit dovetail, and you either have to use a punch and drive them out, or you have to have some type of vise type sight pusher tool to drive them out. Additionally, when you're using a punch and a vise, it makes it really difficult to be out at the range and do fine-tuned sight adjustments. So I was pretty excited when I came across the VISM rear sight tool. This is a rather large, chunky tool, so it's not something you're going to carry around in your range bag all the time, but if you have a new handgun and you just installed sights on it, it's something that's real easy to take out to the range to adjust your sights. Additionally, it makes adjusting your sights, replacing your sights back here in the shop a whole lot easier, with less chance of damaging your handgun or damaging your sights. Normally, sight tools like this are fairly expensive, especially universal ones that come with a bunch of different adaptions or adapters or pushers or fittings or any of this nonsense. This tool makes it kind of easy to set it up to your own handgun. What we have here is we have this big wheel down here at the bottom to set the height. So if you have a really tall slide, no problem, we can fit it. If you have a relatively short slide like we have on Glocks, you can dial that up and fit that too. Additionally, in here in the sides of the slide gripping arms are these little replaceable pads, and they have two sets of them. These are flat-sided, which work better on the Glock frames. There are also angle-sided, which of course you can flip them to have whichever side up you want. And so they should do a good job of holding frames that even have slightly strange shapes to the sides of them. The top is adjustable as well, so you have this top piece that you can bring down to really pinch your slide to make sure that it's not going anywhere at all. So overall, it holds the slide fairly well, and the actual pusher is set up to be large enough to hold suppressor sights with no problem at all. And the way it is shaped, it should have no problem grabbing square sides or trapezoidal type sights without any problem at all. So we're going to go ahead and replace the stock plastic sights on our Danger Close Armament Signature Glock 19, and we're going to get some real steel Ameriglow sights on here. These are just standard steel suppressor sights because I will be replacing the block-off plate here with an RMR shortly. So we're just going to put plain steel sights on, but something that's visible through the RMR, and also something that will actually take a hit without worrying about breaking a sight off or shifting a sight to the side. So first, as always, we're going to make sure that there's no magazine in the handgun, that the handgun is unloaded. I'm going to visually and physically verify, point it in the straight direction, and press the trigger and disassemble the handgun. Now, the first thing we're going to have to do is raise the bar here high enough that we can slide the slide in. Now, we have already raised the platform here on the bottom. You want it up fairly high, but the sight pusher itself, I'll turn this around so you guys can see this, the sight pusher itself does not actually move. So you need to make sure that this little platform is raised up high enough that the sight pusher can grab the sight, but that you don't rake it across the top of your slide. And that's controlled by the big wheel down here at the bottom. So I'm going to change the angle so I can see it here real quick and get it adjusted so that it's not going to rake across the top of our slide. And since we are using suppressor sights, we can give it a little bit extra clearance because the plastic sights are not difficult to push out, but the suppressor sights will give us a little bit more height. And then we just screw down our top piece here, which is being a little bit of a pain in the butt on me. And the pusher does have oil points all around it, so you do want to keep a bottle of oil around. So we're going to slide our slide in here. And I've got it reversed so you guys can see what's going on. Normally I would do this with it facing backwards so that I could actually see what's going on, and it would make it a little bit easier. So we're gonna turn our knob here at the top, and that's pushing down on the slide, holding it down on our big wheel there. And now I need to look at this, and I need to slide it to a point where our pusher is going to catch the rear sight, and I want it to catch it kind of right in the middle. So that's right where we are now. And now we're going to tighten the arms down on the side. So you're capturing the slide from 4 different sides, from the bottom, from the sides, and from the top. So it's really locking it in there, and those plastic pads make it a whole lot less likely that you're actually going to mar the slide. So that's good to go there. And now once we have all that down, we are going to use the screw here, and we are going to push the rear sight, if you're sighting down the handgun, from left to right. So we're going to go ahead and start it this direction, and I'll turn it around so you guys can see. And then we're just going to keep cranking it, and you see it's pushing the rear sight off there very easily. And I can almost see it here from the back as we're doing this, and it gets easier as it goes. So there we go. The rear sight is off. I'm going to go ahead and grab my Ameriglo sights here. Kick these off to the side. Now I'm going to finish it out here, and that plastic rear sight falls right out. Now I'm going to take my Ameriglo sight, figure out which direction it's going to go in, drop a little bit of oil on the dovetail, and that little bit of oil just helps keep from galling the sight when we put it in. Now here's the tricky part with this sight tool. I have to kind of work the rear sight in here into the ears. I need to bring the arm back enough that I can get on to the bottom of the dovetail and start it. Now we probably could, in fact, let's try this. Let's loosen this up just a little bit, keeping our pusher where it's at, and I'm going to slide the slide back towards me. I think this is actually going to be an easier way to do it with this guy. And I'm going to push that in there, and I'm just starting the rear sight with finger pressure. Now I'm going to go ahead and pop it back in here and lock everything down. All right, and that's got it where it needs to be. We're going to flip it over here, and we are going to start turning our sight in. And this one can be a little bit tight because you're pushing a steel sight into this dovetail, and I'll check it every now and again, make sure it's not turned sideways or going strange here. But it's not uncommon to have to use a considerable amount of pressure turning this, and that's why they really tell you need to oil all these screws and all these points, because it will make it easier turning this guy in. And you stop and check it occasionally, especially since, again, I'm not in a place where I can see it. I've got it set up so you guys can see it. So I'm stopping occasionally and looking at it. Now I'm going to turn it around here, because now we get to the critical part, and I like to put it to where I've got some flat light, and I've got a light right over here, so I'm turning it towards that light because I want to try to get this lined up on the first shot right in the middle. And it'll take a couple of times lining it up and then backing off on the sight pusher to make sure you get it correct and get it in there. And it will take a couple of times where you just bump it one way or the other, but I actually think we've got it pretty well. Now we just loosen everything up. You'll have to bring your top pretty much all the way up, and we bring it out, and that really looks good. I think that looks about where we need it, we're good. With the danger close slide, we have 45-degree chamfers on the side here, and so it actually makes it a little bit easier to make sure everything's lined up versus the factory Glock slide. So we've got our rear sight in there. That works just fine. And as you saw, it took longer for me to explain how to set this up than it did to actually get the slide in, get it set up, and use it. It's a really nice tool. It's got this blue anodizing on it. It's fairly attractive. It does have holes to where you can tighten it down to the bench, and it does have this hex shape cut in here on the shaft. So if you don't want to use this little crossbar like I was and try to really wrench on it, you can throw a ratchet on it and then do it fairly quickly with a ratchet and not have to worry about clearing this knob down here. Overall, I can give the VISM Universal Pistol Rear Sight Tool a thumbs up. It looks like it's going to work for a very wide variety of slides. It has quite a few adjustments, and if it's something that is really strange outside of that, then you can probably use some wood shims or some plastic shims in here to get it to fit your slide if you've got something really out of the ordinary. So overall, I'm very impressed. If you guys want to pick one of these up for yourself, I will leave a link down in the description below. If you have any questions or comments on the rear sight tool or anything that we've discussed, please leave it in the comments section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you liked the video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot!